day 14 of 31 days of cold plunging. Hello, my dear. In this video, I'm going to share with you the ultimate morning practice that changed my life and unblocked my creativity and much, much more. I'm going to share with you the morning pages, something that has been around for decades actually, developed by Julia Cameron, who you'll hear me bang on about here and there because her program, The Artist's Way, it completely changed my life. Special interruption, like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you right now because we're going right back to the video. And part of the crux, the backbone of that program is the morning pages. If you're a blocked creative, if you're someone who just wants to blossom their creativity, you got to get on these things. So I have been doing morning pages since 2019 for over 4 years. And in this space of time, I've done them for 4 years in a row. The morning pages. Have you heard of them? Let me know in the comments below. I'd like to know. As you can see, the setting is different today. I'm actually filming this on February 14th, 2024, which is like 6 months or something after I filmed those cold plunges. And day 14 was, I filmed it, I did the plunge, but the thing that I filmed that day was a little bit of a garbled mess. And so rather than editing this huge mess, I decided I'll just film a whole different video. And when I looked through the views of what is out there, like what everybody is viewing the most of the videos I'm making, one of them was the morning routines video. And so I said, you know what? I'm due for doing a deep dive into the morning pages. Let's get to it. The morning pages are derived from The Artist's Way, which is a 12-week program, which is a spiritual path to higher creativity. This is a 12-week program. It's been around for over 25 years now. And the backbone of this program, well, there are two actually. The Artist's Date is one of them. And the other one is the morning pages. Many people will never even finish this program. I know this because I've talked to creatives over the years. Oh yeah, I really should do that one. Oh yeah, I started it, but I didn't finish, blah, 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 blah. Even if you did just the morning pages, there will be so much significant changes within a small space of time. I can attest personally, I cannot for you, but this seems to be the case for everyone who does them, reports it as well. And in this video, I'm going to share with you all of the ways, as many that I could list in the last couple days, of reflection of how these pages have changed my life for the better. The point of the morning pages is to unblock your creativity, is to help you bypass the negative critic, and much more. I know that I was born to be an artist. How about you? We are born to be creative, to make things. This is our God or goddess given right. This is what consciousness is about. It creates. Many people will have a lot of resistances to picking up The Artist's Way and working the program because Julia Cameron talks about the creator and talks about God, and people want to bypass through that this is a spiritual path. I also want to throw in that she talks about God in a very broad way, in a way that would probably not be upsetting to a lot of people, but it would be to some people, such as myself back in the day when I first came across a copy of this book, because any notion of God would piss me off back then. And yet, I still had changes come about from this book when I was still very resistant to doing it and to doing the pages. I was a pretty big atheist actually throughout a lot of my 20s because I really lost all faith, especially because my personal connection to the divine was shunned by the average person. And so I grew up reducing that. And this has helped unblock that too. Your creativity is your connection to your higher self, to higher consciousness, to source. You just need to understand that and find your view with it. And it evolves over time if you work this program. But like I said, even if you do a little bit, just the morning pages, you will see a lot of changes. I first came across the Artist Way when I was in a 12-step program in my 20s, and a sponsor who was leaving the country where I lived, she handed the book to me. It didn't even have a cover on it. It was really beat up. And she says, "Oh, you should take this. It's really good." And she seemed very certain but nonchalant about it. And I flipped around through it and all that. And I remember I did the pages for like 1 or 2 days, because in those days, I could not build a routine. I couldn't stick to things. I was so frazzled all the time. You know, my nervous system was all dysregulated. And this is what happens. You know, a lot of us, we have come from dysfunctional upbringings, maybe trauma, codependency. We have gone through this trauma, maybe that it's dysregulated our nervous system. So of course, it's very hard for us to show up for routines, to make decisions, to trust our intuition. And I could give you a laundry list of these things, which I'm going to dive into a little bit, of how the pages have changed my life for the better. But so I noticed these little changes. Like, I started making more art. I started to go on an artist date. And there were these little things, but I didn't continue with it. The book sat around, and I remember I gave it to some guy that I was dating who was an artist too. Instead of putting myself first, I gifted it. But that's how I was in those days. I want to add in something about why I gifted it. There was this attitude back in the day that still lingers, that I have had to tackle, where the ego assumes it knows everything already. Oh yeah, I got enough out of that. When the thing is with this kind of material or program or practice is that it's a journey. You're going to hear me say journey all the time, but it's a journey, and it unfolds, and you can embark on this journey again and again, and it's going to be different every time. The journey will unfold and wind down new pathways that you never thought were there. Or perhaps you walk down the same pathway that you did once before, but now you see it oh so differently. And that is the beauty of a journey, if you're willing to take it, if you're willing to put in the dedication and the effort. Nowadays, I've realized I should not ever give my copy. I usually have an extra, and I usually was giving them out for years to people. I had this extra copy, and whenever it felt right, I'd give it. And over the years, I've decided I'm not going to gift this maybe anymore. I think it needs to find its way to people in a different capacity. And maybe that capacity is this video. I'll be honest, I've been like a missionary for the Artist Way. I kind of am to a degree, because it's changed my life. The program really has. But let's just talk about these pages, okay? How do you do them? They are, and what are they, right? They're 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing that you do in the morning. They have to be done by hand, okay? Get yourself a notebook, or if you just have loose leaf, that's fine. I suggest writing with what you feel comfortable with. I have conditioned myself to really enjoying a composition notebook. There's this like little classic feel of it to me, and I love things that are classic. And I like to write with a pencil, a mechanical pencil, because it glides across the page much more easily for me than pen. But you choose what you want. Many people have a lot of excuses for doing them, and I'm going to go through those at the end of this video about the resistances. When I'm going on a hike and, you know, maybe I don't want to take all this weight, and yes, backpackers, we worry about every little weight, you know, and we're always trying to cut down on weight. I just rip out a couple of sheets, however many I need for those days that I'm backpacking, and I stick them into the backpack with a couple pencils, right? I mean, if you're going on a month-long hike, you might need to take the whole notebook. But hey, pages burn. You can always burn them like I do at the end of your hike, and you don't even have to walk back with them. I go through about 4 of these a year. So I think it's around, if I calculated it, it's 3 months or 4 months that I use up one of these. Okay, so I just bought 4 of these the other day because I'd run out for good, and I was like, oh, this is great. It's pretty much the beginning of the year. 4, it cost me $2, and was it like something around $2, and I bought a bunch of pencils. Okay, look, it's cheap. You can afford it. Everyone can probably afford that. And let's see. Yeah, so use what you prefer. As you can see, I'm reading a little bit off of a script slightly to keep myself somewhat focused here. But this is like a big old brain dump that you're doing. And this is not the same as journaling, okay? Journaling is very different from this. Journaling, you're taking your time, maybe. You're stopping and you're thinking. Maybe you're reporting about your day. That's not the point of this. You write down whatever comes out of your brain onto the page. Just whatever comes out. You're not stopping, you're not critiquing it. It's not to be some kind of essay or anything. No, it's whatever fucking unga bajunga blip blip comes out, you write it down. Okay. How long does it take? It takes me, if I'm really quick in the morning, it can take 15 minutes. Give yourself around 25, just in case. And what else? I'm finding things that I didn't script along the way to tell you. So if there's anything that I didn't cover or you want to know about, just pop me a comment below, and I'll get to that and I'll give you what I know about it or my personal experience, right? So it's different. It's not journaling. And what is the point of this? We are bypassing the negative critic when we're writing. And you'll see there's going to be a lot of things that come up that maybe you see all your negativity. This is what happens. And that is okay. It's whatever comes out. Okay? It's whatever comes out. Something I need to emphasize is that you do not show your pages to anyone. Don't show them. They're not for others to see. Julia Cameron specifies this in the book. Don't show them. They're for your eyes only. And it is not necessary to read them again once they're done. There is something in week 7 where you're going to look through them, but if you're not even doing the program, don't worry about it. Like we've been saying all along, these are not some fine work of art or something where you're putting a bunch of effort in. No, let yourself be the big chaotic mess or whatever. It's a stream of consciousness. And I've run into people time and again that they start to make them fancy, and they start to throw in affirmations and positive statements and things. And it's something that, sure, I guess if it comes up in the stream, whatever, do it. But the point of the pages is you're not trying to throw in and manipulate the stream of consciousness. You're not trying to be like, oh my gosh, I said something negative. I need to put something positive in there now. That's BS, okay? Don't do that. The pages are pages. Affirmations are affirmations. Let yourself be negative if you need to be, if that's what's coming out. Let me tell you, most of my pages, I would say, are actually quite negative, and nobody would know it because once I'm done getting out all of that crunk or whatever is in my brain, I'm able to show up better in the world. And it means that I don't drag that around the rest of the day sometimes because it's been offloaded into the pages, which is a big point of the pages, right? In terms of affirmations, though, in The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron gives a whole bunch of really, really wonderful affirmations. And she gives you a whole process, actually, of how to do them, which, by the way, this woman is just magical. She knew all about how to do affirmations the right way too. She suggests to do after your morning pages. Here's the thing about affirmations is that in order to be effective in the subconscious mind, our subconscious mind is most suggestible within the 20 minutes after waking up or before bed. So imagine if you're getting out whatever's coming through first with the pages, and then you're moving on to affirmations, you're priming yourself early in the morning. But as far as the pages go, it is not a time to be doing a bunch of affirmations. You're here for a reason. I don't know why you clicked on it. I'm trying my best with SEO here and all this, but maybe you're blocked. Maybe you are trying to expand your creativity. Good. How do we get blocked? There's many different ways that we can get blocked from our creativity, depending on your personal history. But in a nutshell, there's the negative critic. Everybody's got a negative critic. Your inner bitch, I don't know what you want to call it. The perfectionist. Some of us are perfectionists. I hate to identify with being a perfectionist, but I would say I have a habit of being perfectionistic. And these pages have helped me with that. So the negative critic, if it's always going in there and criticizing your work, even if you're not even finished with it yet, you're going to be blocked. If you're constantly thinking like, is this silly? Is this trite? Is this stupid? What are they going to think? Oh no, that's not good enough. Da, 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 blah, 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 blah. You're blocked. You're blocked. You're blocked. There's things that happen along the way in your childhood, especially. There's a reason why there's people who, some people maybe in their lives, they came across a person who thinks that, what are you going to do with that? Artists, you're going to be a starving artist. I mean, I was told this like a lot by people in my life. And look at where it got me. I was blocked. I'm still actually on a path of putting my artwork more and more out there in the world. And seeing that it's actually something that I want to do. And that the blockage was stunting me from doing it. And believing these things that other people believed that were programmed into me. No, thank you. I don't need your subscription plan to artists are all broke. Look at how many artists are making a lot of money just on YouTube and selling their art because they're building following. It's probably never been a better time to be an artist than now. Who knows? But I think it's fantastic now. It's promising, more than promising. It's a reality that we're seeing. And that makes the college me just grin. It makes me grin. To think of all the times I was told, like, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? Well, I didn't know back in 2006, It was a different world now than it is now. And so there's all these beliefs, but like, why is it that there's a person who believes that? And there's people who, especially ones who they grow up in a home of artists and they become artists. And many of them are successful like their parents. Like, look at the Marleys, like Bob Marley and all of his family that are like amazing. And they're all artists and art is just flowing out of them. And it's quite high vibrational art too, I must say. They're always talking about connection to the creator. So there's blockages that come out along the way. Maybe there's a lot of codependency that you grew up with. Granted, for many people who do the artist's way, or even just a bit of morning pages and develop hopefully a routine of doing them, we will be taken on an inner child healing journey. That's what this is to a big degree. Because for many of us who are creatives, who are blocked, there is often a lot of inner child healing that must be had. Because a lot of these negative associations when it comes to creativity, to putting our voice out there in the world, to giving ourselves the space to take up space maybe, to take up space with what we want to wear instead of hiding ourselves out in public. Whatever it is, I could name and rattle off tons of things here, right? This all boils down to often that we have hardwired programmed negative associations in relation to creativity from an early age, something that got patterned in. And so we will go through this inner child journey. And what I love about this journey is that it does it in a way we're put in a very tender journey, and we need to be doing self-care along the way. Let's face it, healing does hurt. And we need to start addressing this because a lot of people are like, just heal. You just need to heal. Like praise healing, and like, you're going to hear me praise healing because you know what? Now that I am healed of a lot of stuff, it's like, oh my God, thank goodness. Because that was really hard, right? It was so difficult. But like ascending to the top of a mountain, you got to put in all of these steps, right? And it doesn't feel good sometimes, but you're getting these great views, right? And so let's face it, healing doesn't feel good most of the time till we're healed. But this journey is done in a very, very tender way. And it's a lot of reclaiming that's happening along the way and rewriting our stories sometimes in the moment. So because we're doing this journey with the assistance of just this guide that's left to us by Julia Cameron, the book, and our connection with our higher self, it is empowering because someone isn't doing it for us. We're doing it on our own. Not necessarily, right? We're doing it in a way that it's empowering. You've just got to take the journey, like take the ticket and get on the ride, It's hard for me to quantify exactly what just the pages have done for me and the entire program. Because I have to look back into many, many years ago when I first received the copy, like I've told you about, and did just a little bit of pages. And then years later, I did the program. I've actually done the program twice. And these days, I'm also working on this, which is a different version, a different kind of artist way that is written by Mark Bryan with Julia Cameron and Catherine Allen. It's for people who are working as a creative, basically, that they're looking for change in the workplace, that they are adapting to changes, the speed of it, and to take advantage of it. It's all about riding the dragon, and we'll see what's to come of it. I'm only in week 2 now, but I bought this book 3 years ago now. Is that possible? Yeah, I think it's maybe at least 2 years ago I bought this. No, it can't be 3. Anyway, I kept on picking it up. I left it behind at my family's, and then I kept picking it up every time I'd come, and I was like, I'd read it a little bit, and then I just wasn't committed. I was like, whatever. And then picked it up this year, and I was like, no, fuck that. It's the year of the dragon. It's the year of the dragon. That's my year. 1988, babe. I'm doing this. And so here we are. I'm going to ride this dragon. Now let's go through some of these miraculous things that the pages have given me. All of these ways that my life has changed. So like I said, you bypass the negative critic. Because you're getting out this big fat brain dump onto the page, you start to have a little bit less anxiety. That's what happened to me. I was getting a little bit less anxious, less OCD, which I'm going to dive into here. And I started to feel much more centered. I started to hear my own truth or listen to myself and what I was going through. I was hearing different parts of myself. Well, I still am till today as I'm doing them. I'm hearing different parts of myself as I am doing this. But it's going really fast. So I'm not like lingering. I'm just going with it, right? And what happened over time is that I had always been chronically indecisive. it was so hard for me to make a decision because I was afraid, like, or I didn't know. And this is like a product of childhood trauma, okay, that we get. It becomes very difficult to be decisive, to take on an opinion. We become a perfectionist. We go through analysis paralysis. I started to be able to make decisions more. I remember I'd go to the grocery store and it was like fruits or vegetables that I don't know why I never would buy them, and I hadn't had them in years, that kind, but suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, there's this. Oh yeah, I like this. And I was starting to have little changes. So that means that it's opening up the possibilities that I see. And so it makes me think, are there new neural pathways being made in the brain? I would say so, even though we're developing a routine doing this, hopefully, right? We do them every morning, right? We are coming out of this same rut that we are in. I would go as far as to say that this definitely helped me get out of depression. And I'm going to put a pin in it, but I could really go in depth about my journey out of depression because I was chronically depressed most of my life and I no longer am. But this was definitely something part of my path to get out of that rut. Because one of the things, for example, when we're depressed is that we struggle to make decisions. Nothing matters to us maybe because we're blasé, we're worn out, etc. And now these small little things that we're noticing, these other possibilities that we were overlooking, it's bringing us back to life. Oh, I haven't seen tangerines in a while. When was the last time I had one? Let's go buy some tangerines. And I was starting to make decisions quicker. And it wasn't such a big deal if I made the wrong decision or if I chose something different. And so if you're suffering from that, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, my friend. And it's a sweet salvation. Okay. I'm not going to say I'm like the perfect decision maker, but man, when I think about those days, most of my life, years ago, it was debilitating sometimes. Life really was debilitating for me a lot in the past because of all the healing that I had to do. So if you can't tell already, I'm from a dysfunctional upbringing. I went through a lot of trauma, and yeah, you can name a lot of things. I could rattle them off, but it's been a long journey of 12 years, and this has been a very, very big part of my journey. So I started to know myself, know thyself, right? Know myself more because I'm spending this time with myself. I'm spending my time, right? And after such and such amount of time that maybe I'd be complaining or listing something troubling, right? You do this enough times and you start to say like, okay, something needs to change. Because instead of going and complaining to your friend or whatever, you end up listening to yourself. And so I'm going to address that part a little bit more in depth later. I want to go on to that this pages had lowered my OCD symptoms. Let me rephrase that. I'm not going to own this identity of OCD. This is a problem. People are identifying so much with disorders today that they can't move forward in their life. I'm just an alcoholic all the time. Oh, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Oh, my OCD, I can't get out of bed. Oh, I'm an introvert. I'm happy that we isolated. I didn't want to see people anyway, even though you kind of do want human connection maybe, right? Like using these I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but if you can follow, I have to speak on this because I'm going to talk also about ADHD here and there and in this video. And I don't want to put this out there with anyone viewing this thinking like, to identify with this label, because it will not let you live up to your fullest potential if you keep identifying with it, because it becomes this like a victim mentality, like this badge of I have anxiety and life was so bad, and you linger on the low drama triangle. Give it a Google. I'm not going to pop an image in here. The low drama triangle, okay? You linger in this victim mode or the persecutor mode or the rescuer. And it can ping pong around in your brain. And lingering on that, it's not going to get us to produce growth or to heal. With that being said, I'm not saying to be like, cut the crap, blah, blah, blah. No, there's a difference. We've got to play a little bit of hardball with ourselves and a little bit of softball sometimes. And this is all about figuring this out, which is something that these pages have given me. They've helped reparent me, but I'll get to that in a moment. So these OCD, I want to address this. Let's go back to this. When I started the pages, I grew up, I had OCD, and I had different kinds of OCD that would happen throughout my life, right? Of course, perfectionism, I don't think I've met anyone who's a perfectionist who doesn't, they don't have these traits. That people have these traits that are obsessive compulsive. If your perfectionism is so bad, you're going to be erasing the same thing over and over till there's a hole in the page, or redoing it, and not putting this video out there. This video is going out there. I might not even edit it. I might just put it up there like this. Hey, put my lipstick on for us, eh? It's nice, right? I got a nice little ring light over here now, so maybe we'll have better lighting. We're progressing, right? I'm sharing this. So the OCD though, I had some pretty detrimental OCD. It really held me back. And as I started doing the pages, like I'm saying, I'm becoming less of a perfectionist. I'm starting to decide on things more. I'm just like doing art, whatever. Okay, the negative critic, I'm going to do it anyway, And so I did the program, which takes about 3 months, right? Because there's 4 weeks in a month. It's a 12-week program. And I continued doing the pages for about 3 months or something after. I remember it was around December, and I was still doing them. And if I trace it back, it was maybe, February or something, when I don't know why I decided, well, I finished the program. Like, I don't need to do these anymore. I'm tired of I'll be fine just meditating. This was the decision, is that instead I decided I would take up meditating. For the first time in my life, as a Buddhist, I was going to meditate every morning. I was going to do this every morning. And I did, actually. I did start up a meditation routine. And what happened was, even though the meditation helped me in a lot of ways, by the summer of 2020, I was having the ultimate OCD episodes, of my life, I think. It was one of the worst one. I could share what it was, but I don't want the video to be super, super long. But it was connected to meditation. Here's the thing about the negative critic, and I am going to tangent here, fine. The negative critic will cling to anything that is important to you. The OCD will cling to whatever is important to you. And in this case, it was meditation. And my brain got locked on this sensor motor OCD where I couldn't stop focusing on my breath. For about 3 days straight, apart from when I finally did fall asleep after taking a number of sleeping pills, which I would never take today. But, back then I was going through it, and I was not against taking pharmaceuticals. I'm not saying I'm against it now, but I'm against it for myself in most cases, unless it is a last case resort. I try to go a different route that's more natural. Anyway, I was not having a great time. It was awful. and I couldn't stop focusing on my breath. Like, could you imagine if all day long, all you couldn't even distract yourself enough that the breath, I just kept focusing on the inhale and exhale so much, and it was maddening. And I felt like I was becoming like hypomanic or something. Eventually, and for an interesting reason I won't share in this video, it stopped. And I thought about like, what is going on? I was having these breakdowns and I was like, what has changed also? And I thought, well, you know, I haven't been doing the pages. Like, things were a lot better, actually. I was more decisive and I wasn't having all of this like overthinking. So I said, all right, I'm going to start it again. And the day that I decided to start the Artist Way, I was like, I'm going to do the whole program again, because I had this intention that I was going to do it like a year after I stopped. And I was like, you know what, I'll just repeat it now. And the same day that I thought that, I saw a rainbow on my walk. Probably still have a photo or video of that rainbow, because of course I took a little photo of it. So as I started doing the pages again in the program, what do you know? The OCD started to dwindle more. It was still really bad around that time. As we know, 2020 was a really difficult year. We were having catalysts uprooted by the bucket load. But this was an anchor for me. These pages are grounding. They're grounding and centering. But what also happens when you do pages? It's a connection with your higher consciousness, with your higher self, higher power. Because sometimes what will happen, and this is noted in some of the books, is that maybe around page 3, you start seeing your inner voice chime in, like telling you a little nugget of like, why don't you try this? Or da-da-da-da. Sometimes it takes getting all of the unga-bajunga criticism out, you know, those who think that they have to control the show, those parts of you, to just kind of like exhaust themselves. And now we can hear the wisdom of the higher self. Granted, I do want to note, don't do pages with this like, I'm going to contact my higher self, because now you're putting this pressure on it. Just let it unfold. Okay? Just let it unfold. The next thing, for me, even though this is not a substitution for meditation practice on the cushion, it is a mindfulness practice in a sense when I think about it. Because what we're doing is we're writing in the moment and we're paying attention. Just try it out. Get yourself a paper and write on the paper something, whatever comes out. And you're focused on it. You have to keep your focus on it. And there's this delicious thing about being able to be in the present moment, where you are just doing that thing. Even if it's parts of yourself bitching and moaning and complaining, you're just doing that thing. You're just in it. And I enjoy just watching my hand glide across the page. You can't really linger in the thoughts because you're just going stream of consciousness, right? And so I noticed also this, I did this little experiment just recently actually, where I said, I wonder if you can think at the same time, because I was thinking of how focused it is of writing pages. I said, what if I was thinking another thought at the same time as writing? And I would think, let's say I had this like this tangerine. I was like, tangerine, think of the tangerine. And it was very difficult to remain focusing on something else, such as the tangerine, at the same time as writing the pages. Before I knew it, every time I was back to focusing on the pages. You know, they say Vincent van Gogh wrote incessantly. I guess when he wasn't painting, he was like writing all the time. And I think it was his method of self-soothing. It gave him, I don't know how much of it was stream of consciousness, but There's something about writing that it's just, especially doing it by hand. I don't know if I expressed that earlier. You have to do them by hand, okay? No, you cannot do them at a computer. It is not the same thing. It's got to be done by hand. It does something with the brain. It does something. So yes, so they are mindfulness in the moment, but of a different variety. Another thing that morning pages have brought into my life for the better is that they are a codependency buster. Okay, I could really, really break this down in a lot of ways, but, and you know, there's books devoted to codependency, right? If you're here for that kind of recovery, you know, welcome, because it's a journey. And you're going to hear me say journey about everything all the time because it is a journey, right? And I know the pain of living with codependent behaviors and habits. It's awful. It's so awful. It is such a crippling way to live. When I think of it, and my one of my motivations for helping people out is like to share how I've gotten out of those codependent habits, behaviors, you know, like it sucks, okay? But you can heal. You can heal. And if you're angry right now, good. There's such thing as righteous anger, which you hear me speaking with passion a lot in videos, because and that is a little anger, because I know how it is. So what happens when I do pages, but especially I think years ago, is that it made me, or it makes me, right, devote to having a morning practice that's all about me. It's all about me. And I'm able to show up better in the world to everyone else that I'm going to meet after, versus if I didn't have a practice, especially this one where it's me venting whatever comes out and not relying on other people for that. Okay? Because let's face it, I know this can sound really cold. I went through times in my life where I felt like, does anyone even care about me? I could just die. I could die in this apartment that I'm so lonely in, and nobody would even know. Would my family even care or know? Because like everyone's so broken apart and all of this. And you know, all of these things I used to think chronically, I felt like people don't have the capacity to listen. And to some degree, this kind of is true. We have to develop our capacity to listen. We have to attract the right people into our field who have the capacity. But we have to be doing the work within first, because if you don't do that work within, you're going to keep attracting people who do not have the capacity, because you don't have the capacity for yourself. Okay? And so as I started, you know, working on myself is when I started attracting better people into my life. Like one of my best friends, he's been a blessing in my life, who really listened to me in the beginning of my early days of healing. And he has a capacity, a large capacity to listen to people, but not everyone is like this. And this is something to be cultivated. Try not to get your panties in a bunch about it. I know it's sad to think about, but it is a cultivation. And there are people out there who actually love to listen to people, like myself. I like to listen to people. That is a journey in and of itself that I could talk about at another time, but that has been a cultivation for me, to the point where it's, you know, as long as it's like I've already done my things for the day, I've got the capacity. As long as I've shown up for me, my cup is more full. I can show up for others. This is not selfish. I mean, we could joke about just be selfish. Yeah, be a little selfish. Do your practices, right? But it's not. A lot of codependent people, they're afraid of being selfish. They think they're selfish. There's a phobia that you're hurting people, maybe, if you take time for yourself. So let's talk about this deeper. My grandmother, you know, bless her soul, she was, just drop my pencil. She was like the ultimate guilt tripper and negative critic. She is pretty much part of my negative critic. And when I was doing pages, the earlier days of doing them, I remember, like, I told her I was going to be there at this time to visit, and I woke up a little late, and I was like, oh, but I got to do the pages. Oh no, like, I got to be there now. Like, what if she dies? Like, seriously, this is the way I used to think. What if she dies? Because, you know, maybe because I had leftover trauma. Like, I lost my mother at 14, you know, everyone's going to die that you love. This is what happens if you lose parents, maybe when you're young. And so I had to say, it was like I was in this battle that morning for, like, you can spare 20 minutes. It is going to be okay. I like to keep my commitments to people with those times, but at that time it was like I realized I needed to do this. I needed to. And so every time that I kept putting myself first with this, I was actually able to commit to other things more. I was building a sense of self-trust. These build self-trust, which is what codependent people, especially people with codependent patterns, I want to say. I hate to label people because I want you to know you can get out of this label. You're more than this, okay? It's about, we've got to put ourselves first, okay? I was very commitment phobic too. Even though I had these codependent tendencies, I was a fearful avoidant attachment style, which you'll hear me talking about more in this channel. But I was commitment phobic. And these pages have helped me to make commitments because I'm making a commitment first with myself. And it's, you know, it may seem like a big feat every day, but it's actually kind of small. When you start doing them over the years, it's like, it becomes second nature. And you realize how important this is. This is like a daily check-in. They're a daily check-in, and the relationships that I've been in since doing pages, it's gotten better and better. Because I'm showing back up in the morning and I'm able to honestly write my feelings out. And sometimes maybe there was a person that they weren't the right one, or there's some toxic person or whatever it is. And you can no longer ignore it. And you keep hearing yourself talk about it. There comes a time in healing where you can't lie to yourself much. You see through your own BS, and yeah, you know. So they're a check-in of feelings, emotions, all of it. I stopped complaining so much, and I stopped complaining to others so much, and I stopped outsourcing to others. I used to be a chronic advice seeker. Like, everyone else's opinion, I thought, or their choice was the right one. Because I had been in an abusive relationship when I was 22, I lost all self-trust. That really made me lose all of it. And so, especially when I kept going back to this person all these times and knowing like I was like addicted to this person, I was like in limerence, like a love addiction. It can be very dangerous, right? If you're in an abusive relationship, it's dangerous. I lost this self-trust. I felt like I don't deserve to trust myself after these actions. Maybe you've been there, you know? And so this helped me reestablish some trust. Granted, there's other things that I've done over the years, okay? Another thing that is that, like I'm saying, I go to them first. I'm not going so much chronically to other people. Like, what do you think of this? Da, da, da. No, it's better for me to go here first. And what happened is I started to see like, it's empowering to do this. Because every time I would go to others for advice, it felt so humiliating. Because we are invalidating our own experience when we do this chronically. And let me tell you, I could say a lot about advice, but oftentimes people go around for advice because they just want a validation of what they actually will not validate inside themselves. And this helped me take people that I had put on a pedestal and bring them down to the same ground as me. It's really detrimental to put others on a pedestal. So this going around for advice all the time and the opinions of others and all of this, it is an outsourcing of our own growth. We need to make choices for ourselves. And if it wasn't the best choice, that's part of our growth, to learn from that, to learn from mistakes, failures, which, by the way, those are much more fruitful than our successes. I can attest tenfold that it's the failures. Yeah, it hurts, it sucks, all that, but man, do we learn. We learn so much from the failures. We learn all the ways that don't work, so now we know what works, etc., etc. The capacity, this is another thing, is that the capacity of the pages is limitless in a sense. They can hold space for anything that we can so utter. Anything that you want to say or that just comes out, it has the capacity. Unlike people we don't usually have that capacity. I mean, you have to be like a monk or a priest or priestess or something. You have to be a spaceholder to really and be working on having capacity to listen to people say some really heavy stuff. People come up to me and say some really heavy stuff. And if I haven't been building this capacity within myself to listen to myself, I wouldn't be able to hold space for them. This is the capacity I've grown, is that I don't have, I'm suspending judgments. We're human, okay. It's not an excuse for causing suffering in the world, but we are mixed up. We are out of touch with our true nature, our Buddha nature. So the pages can hold it all. The complaints, the glories, whatever it is, the suffering, etc. I mean, shit, like I've even erased pages when I ran out of paper and I couldn't buy a notebook because I was like somewhere that I couldn't buy one. I know that sounds weird. And I erased them and just rewrote for the next day, or I wrote on top of the writing. I don't recommend it, but it was, you know, my strategy that time. So this is they have a great capacity. Another thing, I started to enjoy solitude in a new way. In the past, in those days when I was still really fragmented, the only time when I loved solitude is when I was out in nature or I was painting or doing something, doing art. Then I loved it because I was connected with my higher self or with source. This helped me develop this and see my connection throughout the day, throughout the moments. And I started to enjoy just being alone with myself and doing other things. Solitude is amazing. It's not, loneliness is, it can be really crippling. I know the feeling, and I rarely ever go through loneliness anymore. And if I do, it's very situational now. And it'll be like oh yes, naturally I need some human connection. But I can spend days and days without seeing people, and I'm fine. And but we need human connection. But we also need our solitude as humans. We need it. It's very good for us. We start to prioritize ourselves. And this other thing that happened also with this whole prioritizing is that what you may notice when you're doing pages is that you're like doing a to-do list maybe in it. And myself and the guy who wrote this edition, the Artist's Way at Work, he's saying that it's like I don't know what the language he used, something to the effect of glorified to-do list. And this is what happened. I started to make, every day I was writing, what I have to do, what I have to do. I still do this till today. But I couldn't piece my days together. And it was helping me piece it together. It was helping me see what the priorities were of my day. With this prioritizing things, I started to think maybe I want to try again and get treated for ADHD. I don't want to go on a huge tangent about this. I'll make another video on it because it's really important. But I had really, really bad symptoms of ADHD throughout my life. And I know it can be healed, and I know that we can heal it. I believe we can heal it without taking drugs. But at the time, I was not opposed to taking pharmaceutical. However, I had tried all different pharmaceuticals and nothing ever really worked that well. And there was one that I would take every now and again because I just didn't like the feeling of it, but it helped me get a lot of work done. So when I was really desperate, I would take it and I would get a lot of work done, and then da-da-da. And I'd ask my friend, I told my friend, he says, you should try such and such. I'll give you one, you try it. So I tried it, and the one that he had, and it was like, honestly, I would equate it today like it was almost a spiritual experience. It was a spiritual experience for me because it was the first time in my life that I actually heard a person talking and my mind didn't wander somewhere else, and I didn't have to pretend that I had listened or and then feel really bad inside, because I would never ask people to repeat themselves back in the day. And I heard this entire conversation, and it was like, oh my God, how much of life have I missed out on? And so I went right in and I got to a psychiatrist, and I said, I tried this one, it was really good. And so they put me on that, and it was very effective. It was very effective. Over the years, I will share my ADHD journey in a different video, and it might be very long like this one because it's dense, right? This is a journey. But I gravitated away from using medication. I didn't want to use it anymore for particular reasons, and one of them was that I felt like I was getting to a better place naturally, but I wasn't sure if I really was. And I also started to question, what is an amphetamine doing in my body every day? What is this actually doing? Is this taking years off of my life? Because I want to live very long, and some of my family has longevity, hundreds, apart from my mother. But I started to question, I was like, well, and I felt like I don't want to take it. I felt a little conflicted with it. And it also suddenly, after a couple years, it stopped working so effectively for me, which was never a thing. And the reason it stopped working is because my spirituality unblocked. And I started to find my purpose more. And part of this meant me seeing that I was crediting the medication so much for everything that I did that was good. And that made me a little bit angry. That made me think, I remember I did something that was really skillful, and then afterwards this other part of me says, well, that was the Adderall. And then part of me is like, fuck you. I'm sick of feeling dependent on this. I'm sick of feeling dependent on it. And I know that this is really conflicting for people to hear, and I'm not telling you dump your meds if you take them or any of this, okay? I'm sharing my path, my story, but I'm also want to say that I do also believe that that form of Western medicine was actually crucial to my healing. Yeah, I'm not all super, just do everything natural. Like, I guess I would say, I want to say, sometimes you got to try what works for you, right? But for me at that point in my life, it gave me a view of something that I never even would have known, of what life could be like if I was more organized, if my brain was remembering things more easily, and I wasn't misplacing stuff all day. If I was able to read a paragraph without having, or a page without reading it over and over and over again, because I forgot what the sentence said that I just read. And I could list a million things, not a million, but many, of how challenging life was. So the medication gave me this glimpse, right? Anyway, it was like a training wheels, I think of them as, the meds. But doing the pages helped me see, like, I think I really want to start working at this more and starting to treat this and coming to terms with it, because I think I would have been struggling a lot more had I not put on the training wheels for a bit. And by showing up and doing the pages every day, we can't as easily ignore when we maybe fall short of something, or something is bothering us, right? Or we're putting out our priorities again for the day, and we're realizing, like, oh no, I've got to push A before C, and C's got to come after A. We're showing up in so many ways, and with this like reflection, right? And that means that we are increasing our self-awareness, which is very important for ADHD, for everyone, really. It also, I want to say, helps with emotional regulation, which is one of the impairments of the executive functioning of the brain if you have ADHD. Emotional regulation is a huge subject, but to help regulate our emotions, journaling and doing morning pages is really, really good, because we're able to take all of this to the pages, and no one is there to tell us that you're just being irrational. You need to be strong, or like saying all of these things. The pages are just hearing everything. Granted, there may be parts of yourself that show up in the pages that are saying, like, I wish I didn't feel this way. I can't believe this is so stupid. But when we step out of it, we are starting to step out of it as we do the pages, right? We're starting to align more with the higher consciousness, that we are holding space more for all that is within us, like I've expressed before, right? Because that's what holding space is about. It's not about correcting someone or about telling someone just any ideas or opinions. It's about just listening to all that there is, regardless of the ego's judgments, etc. I want to emphasize again how the morning pages help me build routines. I mentioned earlier about how it became a commitment to myself and they have helped me build self-trust, right? But in terms of ADHD, many of us who have this understand or have read that you need routines in your life, and If you're where I was back in the day, I despised routines. And I have learned to love them, because once I get past the resistance of not wanting to do a routine and I'm in the flow of the routine, I've realized time and again that it's a backbone of my life. It is grounding, supportive, all of that, and actually something where I can fall back on when everything else in life is, chaotic and I cannot really control it. So the morning pages helped me build this routine. And like I said earlier, it was always very difficult for me to commit to something. When I started to commit to these, everything unfolded, right? And here we are 4+ years later. It is actually very easy for me to take on a new routine and follow it. Next thing, morning pages were an unblocking of my spirituality. Fast forward, I've had spiritual awakenings now in this lifetime. And I know that they wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have started doing pages. Because why? When you are an atheist, you are a skeptic about everything. Everything needs to be quantified. It can't be. We have to measure it. Well, we have to go online and check how many people have, what did they say? Outside validation. Outsourcing your belief system. Whenever we do that so much, we take away from our own intuition. That blocks the intuition. It can be scary to follow our intuition, especially if we've lived a lifetime where we're not following it. And so it's a risk. We start to take this risk to follow our intuition. We start to hear it more though. It starts because the negative critic, the skeptic, the naysayer takes a couple more vacations here and there, takes the back seat a little bit more. And we start to hear the wise self. We start to hear it. And so what started to happen also is I was experiencing a lot of synchronicities. And at first I remember whatever. But they are addressed in the artist's way. And as I started doing the program more, I was really unblocking and seeing these things were just so specific. And I cannot tell you if you're a skeptic, maybe you probably haven't wandered over to this video, but if you're on the spiritual path, you know all about synchronicities. And it becomes the most beautiful experience to see them, to experience them. And if you were to explain them to someone else, it's like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. You have to meet other spiritual people that are like, oh yeah, that's really cool. I had one last week too with the da-da-da-da-da, and then, So this really helped me to develop intuition. And so my personal connection to my higher self started to develop. Let's dive into some of the resistances that you may have to doing the morning pages. Let's start off with something like, maybe it seems really silly or stupid or very basic. Why would that be effective? Something so basic. Let me tell you a little something about rituals, right? Because this I consider a ritual. It's something that you put some kind of intention into doing, and you put an emotion into it. There's things that go into doing rituals. And all day long, people are doing rituals, whether or not they're conscious of it. Most people are not conscious of the rituals that they're partaking in. No, the society, their religion, or whoever, their country, is telling them to do this. And they don't even think second. They don't think that they're partaking in this. They just do it. It's always good to do your own rituals and put your own spin on them. Don't just take what somebody else tells you to do. But I digress. But let me tell you a little something about rituals. Most rituals seem very basic. Oh yes, we're gonna cut this cord so we're no longer connected to our former lovers. Okay, I'm gonna sit there and the fire's in front of me. I don't even think you need a fire in front of you. I just like using fire because it is my element. And I know that it is alchemical. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna envision this cord and I'm gonna see it running into that lover, that past lover that I wanna cut the cord with. And then I'm gonna stand up after I'm done and I see those cords and I stand up and I chop it. And you know what? That little ritual was actually very scary for me to do. Scary, especially to do with certain lovers. And when you're reading a ritual on paper, it can seem very basic. So basic that you're like, that's not gonna work. That's hocus pocus. That's not gonna work. That's too easy to work. Yes, some of the easiest things are sometimes the things that we take for granted. The things that are so simple can make changes in our lives. So this, you have to just get yourself to do it. Try it out. It's worth it. If you don't think it's worth it after me going through this whole list, I mean, it's like, whatever. You try it out for you. But let's go into some more of the resistances. Perhaps you might need to wake up early. I guess I'm lucky. I am lucky because I'm an entrepreneur. I usually pretty much make my own hours, make my own schedule. There are times where I have to get up earlier than I'd like to for something. And that's not the everyday thing. And sometimes, if that's the case, I'll wake up extra early for it. These pages, they take me from anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. Give yourself 25 minutes. So there are a lot of probably more and more resistances that I can think of. Like, oh, I have kids. They wake me up. Da-da-da-da. You got to get up earlier. Find a way to get up earlier. You know, you have to find the thing that works for you. For example, I remember reading years ago that J.R.R. Tolkien, he would stay up late, really late, after grading all of these papers, you know, like, and then it was his time to work on his writing. So where there's a will, there's a way. And yeah, it means that we're doing extra work sometimes, but if you're a creative person and you're not doing your creative work, let me tell you, you know very well that this is going to erode your soul. Your spirit is going to be blocked. Plain and simple. Recently, there were a couple of nights where I knew I was going to have a late night out. And after having a couple of other late nights out, when I was living on the party island, as it's called, I was realizing I don't really want to be here doing all of my self-care things at 7 a.m. Yes, I had very late nights out there. It was fun. I don't feel like doing that too often, you know, at this point in my life. But I decided these nights when this happens, I'm going to meditate before going out. You can do that with meditation. You can adjust your time maybe, but with morning pages, it has to be done in the morning. So maybe it's going to require getting up earlier and figuring out the commitment for that. We've all heard about the 5 a.m. club, the 5 a.m. club. I'm not a 5 a.m. person. I really hate waking up before 7 and especially when I don't have the sunlight waking me up gradually. It's difficult for me still. I'm more of a morning person than I ever was, but you know, if that was my only choice though, and I had to get up early and I still had to get up earlier to do pages, I would do it because of all the things that I've shared with you. It's worth it. It's proven it's worth it to me. And now I'm at the point where it's like, oh yeah, I've been doing these for like 4 years and 6 months. And it's natural for me to just do them in the morning. It's something that it's a non-negotiable thing. And it's so ingrained that, yeah, there's a couple mornings that come up here and there where I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this right now. And I noticed some of those mornings when that would happen is because something woke me up, like an anxiety about that I didn't finish something yet for work. It's always work, of course, there's always something that like I didn't finish and I'm not done enough. I'm still on my journey of repatterning workaholism. And I would feel like this haste, like I just need to get it done. Oh, I don't even want to do this right now. I just need to send that email or whatever. And I've repatterned myself. No, this is our time. I have a right to a morning routine or ritual, to my morning, before I open the floodgates and everyone starts DMing me and emailing me and messaging and and it's all, how it is. This is why it's like, if I had to eliminate routines and I could only choose one routine or practice of the morning, it's going to be this. It's going to be this. And because it's proven to me that it's so centering for my day. A little pointer, put them right beside your bed. That way, when you wake up in the morning, you can't really ignore them. Put it right there, and then you can do it right after that, let's face it, morning piss that everyone takes. The other thing about doing these, the resistance that can come in also, is that maybe you started off strong or whatever, and then who knows, down the line, like all new habits, you're going to have a point where you stop for some reason. Something comes up, you hit a roadblock. Ooh, this is where it gets really juicy, my friend. This is where you just get back on the horse. Yeah. What, you took a day off? You took 2 days off? You took 3 weeks? Let me tell you about these pages. Like I said earlier, I took off, I stopped doing them. I did them for somewhere around 5 months. So I continued doing them after the 3-month period. It's a 12-week program, right? And like I said, the OCD came right back. And so I just was like, I'm going to start them again. What has changed? I said, what has changed? I think I better start doing those pages again. So it's all about getting back on the horse. It sounds very easy for me to say this right now, because this is what I have been ingraining into my head for years and years and years. Just get back on the horse. You can cry, you can complain, you can make all these excuses. Just get back on the horse. It doesn't matter how many days you took off, in a sense. All of that mulling over the defeats, the failures, all that, it's not actually important. That's not what's going to make you. What's going to make you is how many times that you get back up to the plate. That's what matters. Just get back up to the plate. Just get back on the horse. And gradually what happens when we just keep getting back onto something is like it starts to snowball. The routine starts to get ingrained more. All right, another resistance. Let's see. Okay, here's a funny one, but I put it down here. You may run into the thing where you're in a relationship and you don't really want to leave your lover behind. You want to stay lounging in bed with them. This is a commitment again. It's a commitment to yourself. And I found this to be a little bit of a challenge sometimes, actually. It was more of a challenge when I was in a relationship with someone who was not, they weren't the person that I would have continued a relationship with, they weren't the right person, and they were not respectful of my boundaries. And boundaries, it sounds very extreme, but a boundary can also be something like your needs. Like, you get up in the morning and you do morning pages. And these are things that you do alone. You do them when you're alone in a room. Julia Cameron does not mention this in The Artist's Way. This is not mentioned in the book that you should be completely isolated, but I recommend it. There have been situations where I had to stay over somewhere and I had to share a space with people. And of course, I was doing my morning pages, but it was not the same as me being in solitude doing them. You gotta be alone to do them, I wanna say. But you try it out. See what you think, you know? But so this crawling out of the bed with, in your lovers in the bed, and you don't want to leave them, but it's a commitment to yourself. And like I said, so there was this one person I was with, and it's like they just didn't understand that I had morning routines. They kept interrupting me when I was doing my pages in another room. And I kept saying, hey, this is my personal time. Like, I need you to respect it. And this is a telling factor, is it's how many times do you need to remind a person to respect your boundaries? You might not be in the right relationship. Long story short, that didn't last, and it ended very shortly, actually. Fast forward a couple of years and I'm in a relationship with someone who is securely attached. I'm also more securely attached than I ever have been in that relationship. And that person, yeah, sometimes we had a little bit of loungy time, that lasted after waking up. We're talking or doing something together. And then, naturally, everyone goes to their respectable domains. He goes, don't you have to do pages? Yeah, I'm going to work. And you know what? It's nice when you can say farewell to someone and you don't feel this strange codependency. Fortunately, because of pages, it's really helped me repattern this codependency that I had that was dictating my life. I was conditioned with these destructive patterns that were detriment to my life. And perhaps you're trying to break that crap too. It's possible. Another resistance, let's see. Maybe you're going on a hike. Like I said at the beginning, you don't want it to weigh down the bag. Rip out some pages and take what you need with you. Paper does not weigh that much. Unless, I don't know, are you going on a monthly hike? Maybe you do need to take the whole notebook. You can also burn the pages when you're done, and the pack will be lighter at the end. Another resistance that I see in some people is that they look at the program, the book of The Artist's Way, and it feels very overwhelming for them to do this program. They think, how can I do all of these different prompts and read this? And it's 12 weeks, and I got to take myself on a date, and I got to do morning pages every day. The whole thing seems overwhelming. Like I've been saying, the intention of this video really is mainly about the morning pages, right? But of course, I can't avoid talking about the program of The Artist's Way because the paths wind into each other. This is the backbone, is the pages. And even if you just do the pages, you will have such a significant amount of growth, I bet, that you will probably want to naturally embark on the rest of the journey. And if not, so be it. But let me just remind us that a journey, it starts with each step. It is each step in the moment, each little accumulation of the step. And we're often just looking at the outcome, the finished product, the byproduct maybe of our painting, of everything, of all of the little steps along the way, right? We remember the phrase, Rome wasn't built in a day. It wasn't built in a day. we tend to, especially when we're blocked creatives, we tend to look at the comparisons with the masters, as Julia says in the book. We tend to look at, especially with visual arts, the byproduct of the painting. The one that's the byproduct, which is all of the painting is done. And now we're seeing the product on the wall. That's not really the painting. It's the byproduct of all of the little baby steps along the way that accumulate. Well, that about wraps it up. I'm sure there's more things that I could explore or list, but that's where we're at for now. I want to hear from you, so pop me a comment below and try it out. Get on some morning pages. They're phenomenal. I am going to splice in the cold plunge from that day down here, but before I do, like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow in day 15. Mwah! Let's take a plunge.
49 degrees, 0.6. That's pretty cold, but not as cold as yesterday. Holy crap. Minutes. Okay. Look at that. There was a butterfly in there. Every time I'm at a new point of my journey where I'm really changing, I get a butterfly somewhere on the ground, and I'm getting a lot of them these days. This one is still alive. Hey, buddy. I'm gonna put him down here on this rock. Woo. Fly, 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 fly. He's too wet. Oh no. Well, maybe he'll make it. We'll see. Well, thank you for joining. Like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time in day 15.
What do I do with my morning pages when I'm done with them? Usually I burn them. I have a friend who goes, I can't believe you do that with your pages. I'm like, I've been doing these for over 4 years. If I kept every notebook, it would be like just taking up so much space. Like, check out this photo. This was from like, I don't even know, a year of doing them. It was so many notebooks. And you know what I did? I didn't even have access to lighting them on fire back then. So I just threw them out in a dumpster. And I told myself that nobody cares about your meandering thoughts. And they usually don't, but the pages do. But really, I do like a ceremonial burning when I'm have access to building a fire, and it's really cathartic.
Thy primordial element.
I need to mention that if you are going to do the entire program, do not burn your pages, because you will need them for week 7. Not to spoiler alert you, but don't throw them away. This is, we'll say, high-level artist's way is burn your pages. P.S. Speaking of synchronicities, I filmed this video on the 14th, right? And 2 days later, I was fulfilling a role of being a sanctuary spaceholder at Loveburn. This is a big regional burn, if you follow. And I happened to hear a guy who was also volunteering for that role in the sanctuary talking about how he started the morning pages. And I looked over and I said, that's really funny. I just filmed a whole video about the morning pages. I've been doing them for years. And then someone else in Sanctuary says, you should interview him for your channel. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should. Are you down for an interview? And he was totally down for an interview. So check it out. We go through a lot of different things in this video, and it was just such a thrill to have this happen right after. Synchronicities happened at a heightened speed in a vortex such as a burn, especially when there's so much creative energy just building and collecting, magnifying. So it was really, really, really cool. Check it out. It's linked. See you there.